Hello everyone, welcome to the Marino Show. I'm here with Jason Hough, owner of Galaxy Art and Entertainment Gallery here in North Austin. Fairly new gallery. I've been here many times because I love everything that you have. Let's talk about why you got this gallery started here in the Austin area, because you originally were not living here in Austin, right?
No, I was not living in Austin. In fact, I was kind of from practically everywhere. I grew up in Michigan. Had a stint here in San Antonio about 12 years ago, then moved to Alabama, Huntsville specifically, and then moved the gallery, my family and myself, here to Austin to actually open it up. About 30 years of collecting in the background here, from comic books to movies to pretty much a little bit of everything, autographs and movie and film memorabilia. You pretty well name it, I've had it somewhere sitting in my house. So my wife and I really decided to do something with all of this collection. As people say, when your collection gets out of hand, what do you do with it? Either A, it collects dust, or you open up a place like this. So that's kind of why we got started with the gallery in and of itself. And Huntsville was just really not the place for something like this, amongst a bunch of rocket scientists and other stuff. So.
Well, I wanted to bring that up too, because you and I have talked a lot offline about the reason the location here was so enticing for you was because there really wasn't a gallery like this in Austin. You hear about art galleries, etc., but as a pop culture guy myself, especially in the horror world, as you know, this was something that you looked at, you thought about consciously when you came to Austin,
we really
right?
did. We actually do a lot when it comes to pop culture conventions. So we did a lot of research talking to other people that attend pop culture conventions, a lot like us, that have the same likes and experiences and things with people. We wanted to kind of position this gallery in a place where it would be appreciated. So everybody was telling us, come to Austin, bring it to Austin, because this is the space that's going to appreciate the stuff that you have to offer. So we did that type of research first, bringing in the collectors, the fans in and of themselves, and then bringing in all the stuff that we've got here. So we've met a lot of fans along the way, fans of every genre you can think of, from comic book genres, superheroes, to horror, and even sci-fi and the like from there too as well.
When you talk about the different collectibles that are here, what are some of the standouts for you, for people who want to come to the museum and visit? What are some of the standouts for you that
Personally, I love the screen use stuff. Being a talent manager and in the entertainment industry, I work with a lot of actors out there, and as well as directors and producers, and I love the stuff that they're putting out. So we do have a handful of screen used items, specifically from Chronicles of Riddick. We have one of the Necromonger costumes that was actually worn by Carl Urban, who also was Judge Dredd in the remake of Judge Dredd. And more currently, he's Billy Butcher in The Boys. So a lot of people look at that costume and they relate to not only his time on The Boys, but also the film itself as Chronicles of Riddick. We actually had a customer that came in and just had watched the movie prior to coming into the gallery, so they were able to connect the costume with the film itself. So they had a better experience with the movie, as well as coming in here to kind of couple that experience level between the costume work and the history behind the costume and the history behind the film. So they learned a little bit more about filmmaking and movies in general by seeing that particular costume. We also have the mask and the sweater that Corin Nemec wore in Half Dead Fred. So that's also a very fun piece to have, because when we had Corin here a few weeks ago, he actually posed for pictures next to his sweater and mask. And when people go and see the film, they'll be able to relate that as well with meeting the actor and then seeing the props and the costumes involved in the film as well. So they learn stuff about filmmaking, making movies, and then they can even meet their the actor that played those characters too. So when they go see it in the theater or watch it on home video or even resurrect that favorite movie that they've had in the past or when they were a kid, they can connect that with the actor that they met here at the gallery or see a specific piece or a piece of movie memorabilia from that film as well. So it's kind of cool to see those connections from people when they come in and see those items.
And it was nice. I got to interview Corin and Ari Lehman for the original Jason and Friday the 13th. So those are some of the types of people you bring in, along with cartoonists, voice actors.
Exactly.
And it's a way to get people to get in the door. But you also have, speaking of some of the scary stuff, you have a little room back here that has some posters and some other collectibles, right? Related to horror movies.
Exactly. So we have some masks from Halloween, signed by the actors that played Michael Myers in Halloween. We've got some things from Friday the 13th. We've got a lot of Jasons out there on the wall and a lot of autographs from other people as well. So one of our prized possessions that we've got here is the signed autograph from George Romero. Of course, everybody comes in here and they can say, hey, he's the guy that created the zombie, of course. We wouldn't have The Walking Dead without George Romero. But when George Romero passed away, people can't go in there and get those autographs anymore. So we have them on the wall where people can take photos of them and kind of reminisce about those films that they love, especially in the horror genre. And even the props that we have to show, a lot of masks, a lot of props. We have an axe out here signed by the guy that played the Creeper in Jeepers Creepers. So we've got those things as well.
You've had people come through the door and they've obviously walked around and seen all the different things you have. We're mentioning a story earlier about somebody who came in, but what are some other standouts that when the people have come in, have there been a few things that were surprising to you that they gravitated towards that maybe you didn't think they'd know about or really care about?
Yeah, my wife is a big Little Golden Book fan, so she actually has some of the original Little Golden Books. And specifically, we had a client come in that really loved the Pokey Little Puppy book. So much that when my wife said, yeah, I've got like the first edition Pokey Little Puppy Little Golden Book I can bring in and you can see it and hold it, he got so excited. So the day came where we had it in one of our cabinets. He came in and actually looked at it. My wife pulled it out and showed it to him where he could actually touch this thing. And the waterworks just started. He started crying. He had to take 5 minutes to go outside because he was getting so emotional from a memory that he had over that one little book. And that happens a lot in here. You see a lot of people that reminisce and start getting memories of their grandparents or their parents, or they start telling us stories, because that's one thing that we have here is what we love to do is we're one of the only tour-led museums here in Austin, meaning that when you come in, yes, you're paying your admission at the door.
Which, by the way, is very low,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
$10?
It's very cheap. It's very cheap. It's $10 to come in and look at everything. But on top of that, you get a tour. One of us, my wife or myself, will walk around and point out things like the ghost costume we have back here or some of the other prints and other artwork. And we actually tell you the story behind them. We give you the history of this comic book print that we have, or this film, this movie or television memorabilia that we have here, and we kind of give you a little bit of an education. So when you leave, okay, well, there's a story behind everything that we have in here. And that's one thing that the first Google review that we had actually came out and said and gave us our quote back to us. There's a story behind everything, and we're here to tell those stories. And that's exactly what we're doing here, is we're telling everybody the stories and the experiences that we had meeting that actor or that producer or that director. And what's cool about that too is they'll come back in and tell us stories. Like, for example, we've met Robert Englund back in the day, and we had dinner with him. And then we had somebody come and tell us the experience and the story that they had meeting Robert Englund. So that's half the fun of coming into a place like this.
And that is an important component for you, is that you have been in the industry. Yep. You've been a talent scout, right? Or what was exactly your position?
I'm a talent manager, meaning that I work with actors and even writers and producers, and I sell them as an individual. I take their resume and I shop it around to other projects, other programs, other television series. Like, for example, I manage a guy by the name of Dennis Hurley. He got picked up and he was in a good solid season of a show called Superstore. Adam Sandler picked him up for a couple of projects. He was in something called The Gallows 2, which is a sequel to the first Gallows movie. So that's what I do is I shop these people around and I get them work. And in Intense, they give me a small portion of whatever they make on those projects. But in that terms, I learn a lot about the industry on top of that. I also filmed my own short films, and that's how I got started in the entertainment industry rather than outside of the Comic Cons and the conventions. So I got to work with actors and directors and producers and film people and all of that. So I knew how all of that got put together. So when you're watching a movie on the big screen, like take The Avengers for an example, a big blockbuster film like that, a lot of people don't understand the direction and the science behind the filmmaking that goes into that. I thought the same thing growing up and watching Incredible Hulk and Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby. Like all this stuff just kind of fell together. Everybody's walking around with a camera, and that's how the things happen. But they don't know that things get filmed out of order. They don't know how SFX makeup and all that stuff that Lou Ferrigno had on his face and in other areas, how all of that works. And there's makeup people out there, and there's PAs out there, production assistants out there that have each one of those have a job that they have to do in order to put out this movie that doesn't take 2 weeks to film. It takes months upon months in order to write the project, and then get the project sold, and then produce the project, and then go out there and actually shoot the project with these umpteen actors that have to all come together and work together, and a lot of that can be a little rough too. But then you have this product that everybody loves to go and get their popcorn and their soda and sit down in the movie theater and actually watch this stuff. It's really cool and how everything comes together.
And I have to tell everybody watching that I know for a fact you have stories about everything because like I said, I love Friday the 13th, Halloween, the other horror franchises, Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. And, you've been able to give me some insight just based on some of the material that you have here collectible. So I've enjoyed that very much. I've also been to your place and know that you have a lot more stuff outside of here. Ultimately, in the future, you'd like to get a larger space and be able to put all that stuff on display. But my question is, for you, this obviously is a passion for you and your wife, your family. Yep. What was it that made you gravitate towards this? Like, as a child, were you interested in certain things? What is it that got, like, certain things in this museum even, that got you to this point?
So a lot of what's in here has some kind of a special piece of my life and my heart, whatever is involved, a person, an object, a comic book, or something like that. Like a lot of people out there, I came from more of a little bit of a broken home. You've got all those things where your parents do certain things that don't necessarily jive very well or whatever, but I threw myself into things like comic books and movies in order to, get out of a situation, at least in my headspace, for a little while. So I pick up a comic, a Superman comic or a Flash comic or an Incredible Hulk comic and get into that sort of thing and become that character for that amount of time to get myself out of the situation that I was in. That's why a lot of the objects you see in here, a lot of the collectibles that we have mean a lot to me, mean a lot to my wife, mean a lot to my kids, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for some of those things. And that's the same fact to a lot of people, other people out there, is they tell me these stories, they tell the acting talent that we have here these stories, that they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that character or that movie or that book or anything like that. And that's why a lot of the stuff that we have here in the museum mean a lot to me and mean a lot to my wife and kids, is because, I want to give back to those people that saved my life, because if I wasn't here, they wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. And they're treating the same people with that type of respect as well. So all my kids have always been to the conventions we go to. My youngest was in diapers. We'd stroll them through the convention. People got to know us so well.
You go to the Comic Cons, you go to the horror cons, you go to all of them.
I would take my kids everywhere. Yeah. And to a lot of people, even a horror convention, they're like, I don't want to have my kids there because they might see something that would keep them up at night. But if you introduce that to your kids, like my oldest daughter never saw a horror movie in her life. She was 8 years old, sat down and had dinner with Addie Miller, the first zombie in The Walking Dead, the little teddy bear girl zombie in The Walking Dead, sat down, had dinner with her, and then all of a sudden it's, Dad, I want to see the first episode of The Walking Dead. I want to see my friend Addie, portraying this role. And I said, fine, let's watch it. So we sat down and watched the first episode of The Walking Dead, and she was hooked from there on out. She watched every episode, got to know Carl or Chandler Riggs very well. In fact, she was infatuated with Chandler. She met him at a show and had a photo op done, and we just got to be friends with all of these people. So that way she knew the difference between what was real and what was acting, what's makeup and what's out there and real in society right now. So in and of itself, you can teach your kids from a character like Freddy Krueger that Freddy is not real. I mean, there's human beings out there like Freddy that you need to be afraid of, but you don't need to be afraid of that actor or that medium.
But also, what a unique perspective your daughter has in actually knowing some of the people that are on the shows that she loves so much. So there are so many things, as we've mentioned, in this gallery. But for you, is there something that you just zero on, you personally, that you just love in this gallery that means, I know that's probably hard to pick because there's a number of
them, but
a lot
of stuff in here.
What are some of the few of the things that you just gravitate towards?
Definitely. I do have some things that really mean the world to me. A lot of the horror stuff that's in there. I've got a couple of masks that I've actually met the person behind that mask and really had profound meaning on my life. But one thing in particular, I got to meet John Carpenter. So I actually got to, get a copy of Halloween signed by John Carpenter. But what was cool about that is John had nobody in line. So I got to sit down at John's table for like 45 minutes and just talk shop with John Carpenter. And a lot of people don't have that experience that they can sit down and talk with somebody like that, at that caliber. The guy that came up and designed Michael Myers, created Halloween, and did all the music compositions behind it too. And he's sitting here and he's taking notes and I'm taking notes and we're just learning from each other. That's one thing about those shows, especially the smaller ones, the more intimate stuff that we like to bring to Austin here. Yeah. You can actually learn something from this actor, learn about their personalities, learn about their background, their likes and their dislikes, and why they did a certain thing a certain way, be it budget or be it this is the way that they wanted to do it. But sitting down and talking with somebody like John was astronomically great. And I have those memories, and that's the memories that I want to share with other people, because they've got people out there like Corin, who was here a few weeks ago, and followed his career through Stargate and everything else. And Corin is a fantastic person. We are very close friends now, and we're doing other stuff with him as well. So a lot of the Corin stuff that I've got, the signed DVD set from Parker Lewis, or the hat, the mask and the sweater set that I've got from him, that also means a lot to me because we're friends. We have that personality connection and all of that too. So that really helps with those objects too. So like I said, there's a lot of stuff in here, but really those two things are really what means the world to me.
And one of the big goals for you right now is getting more people in the doors, which, you and I have had very open and honest conversations about that. People, if they come into a signing, you've had a number of people come so far. You mentioned Corin, there's Ari, there's a few voice actors. What kind of experience will they have if they come in? Because I know what it is, but when you think of meeting an actor or somebody that means a lot to you, you think of those big conventions where you're standing in like a 45-minute line. That is not the case here, which is why I think it's so important that people know this place exists, because they're going to get, what kind of experience are they going to get?
It's a more personable experience, more intimate experience when you come in here and we're able to talk to people like Corin and others. You can come in and tell them how much the work that they did means to you, ask them questions, be able to get those answers back, because you're right. You stand in line at a corporate convention, and a lot of them are great. I mean, you have a lot of fun going to a corporate convention. There's lots of different people there, lots of different places you can spend your money and go broke. But when you come to an intimate signing like a comic book store or Galaxy here in Austin, you'll have that intimate time with that actor, that artist that we grew up watching. Another cool thing about it is especially with things like Corin, you can sit back and take as many photos of what of Corin, with around the stuff that he did, and other things too. So coming to a place like a gallery like this that has a lot of film memorabilia, not only do you get the experience of meeting the actor, but you can also walk around the museum and look at other things and see other people that we're going to be bringing in, ask the questions, and have that time that you're not going to get from a corporate convention. Plus the lines are a lot shorter. And again, you have a lot more time with that actor.
And speaking of upcoming guests, who do you have? You have a lot of people coming
We have
this
a
year.
ton of people coming in next year. A lot of them haven't been to the U.S. before, or they've only been to the U.S. one time. And they attended a convention in New York City or California. So, Texas hasn't even seen these people before. A lot of other areas haven't seen these people before. And a lot of them, this may be the only chance you're going to get to actually meet them and get some memorabilia signed. We actually have an individual that has been around the world of sci-fi for a long time. In fact, he actually worked with Tom Baker as the fourth Doctor Who, and he was the original one of the original Davrosses, and that's David Gooderson. He'll be here signing Doctor Who memorabilia. We've got a bunch of stuff that we can also sell customers, bobbleheads and other things, that David will sign for them, and then they can take this keepsake home with them and take pictures with David and just enjoy the time. So Doctor Who fans out there are really going to enjoy the experience, because we may not be able to get Tom Baker here, who's in his 80s and 90s now, so he's not going to be around very much longer. But somebody like David, who worked with Tom, and it was a visual representation of what Doctor Who was back then, being Davros, you have your chance of coming in, meeting him, taking some pictures with him, and getting some things signed.
What is your big picture view moving forward with Galaxy? What would you ultimately like to see and do?
Well, one, we want a bigger space. And we want a bigger space that has a little bit more foot traffic, because right now we're struggling with that foot traffic in order to get people through the doors, in order to keep ourselves going. So the bigger space would be very, very, very good for us, especially with all the collections that we have. As you mentioned, my third bedroom at my house is full of this stuff.
For real, y'all.
It really is.
I've been in the house. It's not cluttered or anything, but you have everything. I bought some stuff from you at your house because
it's crazy.
There's so many cool things. So ultimately, bigger space.
Bigger space. We can do more events, and eventually too, we'd like to sponsor our own convention as well, so that we can bring in all of these people into a space like Austin, who doesn't really get a lot of that convention feel, but you're going to still have a smaller type of con atmosphere where you can still have the intimate time with the actor, as well as our signings, and expand those out even more. Get the bigger names, because next year we're going to have, or this year actually, we're going to have those big names, but we want the bigger names, the more draws, the John Wesley Shipps, the Daniel Logans, the others that are out there, and the larger names in the industry. And we can only do that when we have people come in and actually come to our events and come into the museum itself and support us through that.
And Austin is a great city for that. I mean, in terms of more and more people have been moving here, as we all know. And also just the creative energy that exists in Austin, whether it be through music, acting, it really is a spot where you can find people who have interest in the kind of things that you have here on display at the gallery, right?
Exactly. And the next thing we like to do too is we like to feature local Austin, Texas artists here too. For example, Greg Peters, who actually won 2 Emmys for the Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. He was here signing autographs, but at the same time, we have his artwork that we actually have for sale here in the gallery. So you can come in and support Greg and the future of his work by coming in and buying a print, or seeing him at a convention, or seeing him here at Galaxy.
And you have a lot of other artwork. Like even Corin had signed a bunch of, I'm just going to step out and get this real quick just to kind of show some of this stuff, because I think it's cool to see it. But even, Corin signed all of these while he was here.
So this is actually a cool piece. So my friend Brian Roll, who's actually in North Carolina, put the print together for us for the Corin signing. And he's got a lot of other artwork here in the gallery. But a lot of these people that you're going to see, a lot of the artwork, even the Jack and Sally piece here was done by another friend of mine, Ken Salinas. Also an Austin artist, so he actually lives here in Austin. A lot of people don't understand that these artists live here in their own city. For example, I've got a mask signed and a little bit of artwork done back in the gallery in our sci-fi room, done by a gentleman by the name of Steve Garcia, who a lot of people don't know. One, he's a Beta, Texas resident, so he's one of our neighbors here, but he was one of the lead animators on this small little film called The Iron Giant.
Wow.
So we have people right in our own backyard and artists that we're seeing at different conventions. Steve does a lot of cons. Ken does a lot of cons. Even Brian does a lot of convention type of stuff, and they don't understand who these people are. That's why we want to bring people in here, introduce their work, so that way when they see them out there on the streets or at another convention or even here in Galaxy, people are learning the names behind the magic, as we like to say. And
that's the great thing. Like you said, even some of the people you brought, aside from the local people see all their work, but they don't see them. They don't know who they are, and they deserve as much attention because of what they've created and how it has such a lasting impact on the people who watch it or buy it or whatever the case may be. So what would you say to folks out there who haven't yet been here? What would be your pitch to get them to come in?
You guys have to come in and check it out. I mean, really, that's the main thing. We have something in here for everybody. Don't think that we're just a bunch of collectors and have our stuff on display, just have you come in and drool over. Come in, experience what we've got here. Experience our signings. Talk to us. Let us hear your stories as well, because a lot of other museums in the area, there's some fantastic museums here in Austin. We do something a little bit differently because we want to make sure that we draw those people in, draw the fans in, and we really seriously have something in here for everybody. I'm drawn to a little bit of a story my wife was telling me. A father and his two kids came in, and the father himself thought, okay, this is not a place for me. My daughter really loves ghosts, so she came in here to see, the ghost costumes that we've got on display here. And he showed up and they were here for an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. He was just walking around in gaga over our music stuff and the horror room and the sci-fi room. And just spent all this time in here enjoying it. So that's what we're out there. That's kind of my pitch, is come in and check it out. If you're not into horror, we have sci-fi. If you're not into sci-fi, we have a lot of kid-friendly comic book artwork and other stuff in here that people can come in and enjoy. Bring your families.
It really does bridge the generation gap, because there's something for everyone.
But I'll ask a 10-year-old, hey, who is that guy up there? And I'm expecting, oh, it's Stan Lee. Because I get a lot of that too. Oh, that's Stan Lee. Oh, no, it's somebody on this line of stuff over here. We're in a horror room, so who would that be? When you have a 10-year-old telling me this stuff, it's amazing. It's good. It makes me smile, seeing that this 10-year-old is so excited about life and about that genre and just about the stuff that they like, and that's what this place is about. There's something in here for everybody, and I can't say that enough.